everybody. My name is Karen. I am an associate counselor here at Plexus, and I will be walking you through test taking strategies workshop. Here is a quick overview of what tests you will be expecting to take based on what student population you belong to. So first, we're going to start with high school students. High school students will be taking the PSAT, which is a practice test for the SAT. Then they will be taking the SAT and the ACT probably sometime around their junior year. And then the AP and any IB exams that you are enrolled in, depending on the class you are enrolled in, you'll be taking those exams sometime in May. Okay, so for international students, you are required to take the TOEFL or the IELTS, which are English proficiency exams if you are interested in studying in the US or in any other country that requires English proficiency. So the TOEFL stands for the Test of English as a Foreign Language, and the IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System Exam. Finally, we have graduate students. So depending on what program you want to apply to, if you're applying for a master's degree, a PhD, or anything like that, you will be required to take one of these exams. Maybe you're not required, but it's definitely important to check out the admission requirements for the program. So you will be taking the GRE, which is the Graduate Record Examination. It's also the most common exam for graduate students to take. The LSAT, which is the test you will be taking in order to get into law school. Then the MCAT, that is for medical school. And then the GMAT, which is for a management program. All right, let's move on. Before you take the test, it is very, very important that you study. Very, very important, because preparation is key to being successful in an examination. All right, let's move on to some tips for studying. The first tip, do not cram the day before your exam. Cramming is a very bad idea. It's not recommended for anybody to do it, because that is months, weeks, maybe even years worth of material. So yeah, it's definitely not recommended, because it will overwhelm your mind and you will not feel prepared for the exam if you cram the day before the exam. Annotate and take notes. By annotating and taking notes, you're going to maybe underline some keywords, which I will give you some examples of keywords in the next slide. Actually, you'll be highlighting and drawing arrows around, maybe like commenting on something specific. So yeah, annotating will definitely help you in memorizing material. Study little by little every day. Yeah, this is important, because if you study little by little every day, then you'll be more confident when the exam comes, because that means you already have the material ready, and that means you have reviewed everything with time, and of course you didn't cram the day before the exam. So yeah, study little by little every day. Focus on the topics you are unclear about, because if you focus on the topics you are clear about, then that is pretty much just reviewing and you're not really studying. Of course, it's very important to review. That's definitely a very great study tip as well. But yeah, like just focus on the topics you're unclear about, like that. When the examination comes, you feel very confident on answering any type of question and on any topic. Take practice tests if possible. There are a ton of practice tests online. There are a lot of free practice exams online as well. So definitely the internet is your best friend. Definitely take advantage of those opportunities if possible. Use flashcards. That is a very great strategy for studying, because if you use flashcards, then you'll be able to quiz yourself. That is, you can probably write the word or the topic on one side of the flashcard and write the definition of it on the other side of the flashcard. And then you can quiz yourself after to see if you actually know the material. And finally, review. As I mentioned before, reviewing is also a great strategy to studying. So review all the material the day before the exam or weeks before the exam or while you're studying as well. On the day of the test, eat a good breakfast. We know like this is not a health workshop, but we do want to promote eating a good breakfast on the day of the test, because you don't want your stomach to be making noises during the test, or you don't want to be thinking about food when you're taking an important exam. So definitely eat a good breakfast. Review the material even on the day of the test. I know you will probably feel confident because you've studied so much, but even on the day of the test, it is very important to review the material. Arrive early, because if you arrive early, that will give you time to review the material, and that will even boost your confidence because you're one of the first people there. During the test, keep calm and be confident. You don't want to walk in the room nervous and sweating and super shaking because of this important exam. Like, yes, it's very important, but it's also very important to be confident. If you are always nervous during the exam, you're going to be forgetting what you just studied. Like, that is months worth of studying, so you don't want that to happen to you. Ignore those that finish early. Sometimes students can get distracted that there are students that are walking up to the front and turning in their test before you are, and just like the noise of it just can get them like very distracted. This shouldn't be the case. This I know, like sometimes you feel pressured that you want to finish early as well, but there is research that proves that those that actually take their time on an examination, those that actually like review the questions, actually get better grades in finishing early. So it's actually not bad to finish later than others. Be mindful of time. Some tests have unlimited time, however, most don't. Some examples are the SAT and the ACT. Those are not timed tests. You have limited time on each section of the exam. So definitely be mindful of time. Be careful on how much time you're spending on each question. Also, like something else to keep in mind. Some tests allow you to skip questions and you won't lose any credit. So skipping questions is also like a good strategy to be mindful of time as well. Read directions carefully. If you read the directions, there are probably some hints that will help you in answering a question. So definitely read directions carefully. They will avoid you feeling confused during the exam. Annotate if possible. If not, you can use scratch paper also if possible. Some exams are like, make sure you listen before you're taking the exam to see if um if the representative that's there will let you actually annotate and write in the exam, or if they will let you use a scratch paper. Because if you annotate, that will help you in like knowing how to answer the question and like what exactly are they looking for. Let's move on to some tips for multiple choice questions. First thing you want to do is analyze the question. That is, you want to underline and highlight the keywords. And that brings us to our next bullet point, underline and highlight keywords. Again, I will be going over some keywords in more forward into the workshop. Read all answers before choosing one. Some students make the mistake of thinking that is the correct answer. Like I'm very sure that is the correct answer, and they think they're so confident and they haven't even read the other answer options, because there is maybe another answer option that will probably answer the question even more clearly, or has a more specific meaning or more specific answer than what they're looking for. So definitely read all answers before choosing one. You don't want to make that mistake. Process of elimination. This is one you have probably heard constantly. It's a very well-used strategy. It can actually boost up your chances of getting the correct answer. That is, if there is an A, B, C, and D, If you have 4 answer options, you have a 25% chance of being correct. If you use process of elimination, and if you end up with 2 answer choices, you have a 50% chance of being correct. So process of elimination is based on knowledge, is based on judgment, on by using in any of the other strategies on keywords and things like that. Is very related to making an educated guess, which is something that I will talk about also further in the presentation. All of the above versus none of the above. These are some of the trickiest questions you will encounter in a multiple choice exam, but here is a quick strategy that I want you all to keep in mind for all of the above and none of the above questions. So if at least one answer is incorrect, do not select all of the above. And if at least one answer is true, do not select none of the above. An educated guess. As I mentioned before, this sort of works like process of elimination. So with an educated guess, you want to use all of the strategies I mentioned above and see if you can actually find an answer option that you feel more confident in being actually the correct answer. Marking the question and coming back to it later. However, you really have to make sure you come back to the question later. You don't want to forget about the question. Like as I mentioned before, some exams don't take away points if you skip a question, but not all exams are like that. So make sure you are coming back to the question, make like a little note or something for you to help you remember to come back to it. Okay, let's move on to some keywords. These keywords are just some examples of what can come up in a question. What does the question actually want you to look for? These can come up either on the question or in the directions. And there is obviously like a lot more of keywords like that can go into this list. These are just a few examples for you to consider. Define, accept, common, best, often, and produce. All right, let's move on to qualifiers versus absolute qualifiers. Qualifiers are words that can prove a statement to be true. Some examples could be sometimes, frequently, often, generally, and few. And for absolute qualifiers, they are words that can prove a statement to be false. Some examples are always, never, absolutely, all, completely, etc. These qualifiers versus absolute qualifiers are mostly useful for true or false questions. However, they can also be useful in making an educated guess and process of elimination as well. This is just a brief image just to kind of separate what is the good words and what are the bad words. And just to give a quick example of, let's say the directions say true or false. People always drink water when they work out. Let's say that is a true or false question. Okay, wait, now I want you all to analyze what I just said. So, do people really always drink water when they work out? That is tricky because they often do, but not everybody drinks water when they work out. They can probably drink like an energy drink while on a treadmill or something. So that is why always is an absolute qualifier, and that is why often is an qualifier. Let's move on to some tips for a short answer and essay question. First thing you want to do is analyze a question. The first two are very similar to multiple choice because you want to analyze a question and you also want to underline and highlight the keywords so that can help you answer the question. Grammar and punctuation. When you're writing an essay, you want to be mindful of the grammar and punctuation you are using, because if you are not mindful of it, that can actually take away points, and a lot of people don't know that. So look out for the grammar and punctuation. Make sure you are reviewing everything you are writing and how you are writing it as well. Proofread. So yeah, that means reviewing making sure you spelled something correctly, making sure you added an exclamation point or a question mark or things like that, or an apostrophe. So make sure you are proofreading what you just wrote. And of course, here are some examples of keywords that may pop up in a short answer and essay question. Describe, analyze, explain, define, evaluate. After you finish taking a test, make sure you review. However, only if you have time. As I mentioned, a lot of tests are timed. Therefore, you have to keep in mind of every second you are taking in answering a question. So be mindful of time, and only if you had time, make sure you review. There is also research that proves that if you review, you also have a chance in boosting up a little, because you may find like maybe, okay, this answer is not correct, I made a mistake, or things like that. So definitely review. It's a good strategy for test examinations. Here are some other tips for you all to consider. If you are taking a multiple choice exam, make sure you are bubbling in completely in either the Scantron or the sheet you will be using to bubbling the questions. Make sure you are bubbling in completely and looking at the directions on how to do that. For short answer and essay questions, make sure you're writing clearly. This can make it, if you don't write clearly, this can make it hard for the graders to read your answer question, and it could possibly also take out points if you are not writing clearly and they can't elaborate what you are trying to say. Your first answer is usually the correct answer. That is something also that research has proved. That means your first instinct is actually not bad. Answer the easier questions first. If you answer the easier question first, then that can probably boost up your confidence in answering the harder questions. And there, like a lot of times, there are probably some tips or little hints that you may find in other questions that can help you answer a question you don't know. All right, we have reached the end of our workshop, but before I leave, I want to let you all know to, if you can please download our Plexus app that can be on App Store or Google Play. If you download our app, you will be able to receive instant notifications from my counselor. And also, we will very appreciate if you will rate and review our app. We appreciate any feedback and any critiques as well. Thank you so much, and I hope this workshop was very useful for you all, and I will see you all in the next workshop.